Hello, it's me, Dr. Toomer, on Dr. Toomer Talks on Tuesdays. And I'm here with Dr. Weili Gray from Dare to Dream Physician Podcast. And it's going to be a really great discussion because it's a little bit different than what you might expect from me as a health, wellness, and weight loss doctor, because she does talk a lot about travel, which, believe it or not, has a lot to do. Well, we know it has a lot to do with wellness, but that wellness can also help with weight loss. So we'll tie it in somehow. But I'm going to let her introduce herself and let you know what it is that she does.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Dr. Toomer. It's such an honor to just be in a conversation with you. So, I
Mhm.
am Dr. Weili Gray. I am the founder of Dare to Dream Physician, where I host a weekly podcast and where I just provide content on inspiring physicians to live life to the fullest through traveling. Um, I am also a practicing sleep physician. I'm an employed sleep physician in rural Vermont, and I'm married. I have 3 kids, and so that's actually ties in with travel. Like just the whole travel. I started traveling when like growing up with my parents, like domestic travel, but I started like international travel when I was a college student. And then I continued doing so until about medical school, and then had a child in my internship. And 2 more kids after that, and then there was this big hiatus until more recently when I picked up travel again. And so yeah, that's what I do.
Well, thank you. Just be really quickly, I'm just going to say if you're listening now, say hi. And if you listen later, put hashtag replay so I know that you've had a chance to look. And hello, Dr. Funke. How are you? Thank you for joining us. Well, one of the things I want to talk about, as soon as you say travel, people just immediately think palm trees, beaches, something exotic. What are some of the easier travel things that people can do, maybe day trips or local trips or different things that can help them feel good and not have to spend a whole lot, but it can have the same impact, the same uh, wellness feeling of, say, traveling, which through airports isn't always very relaxing, but once you get there, maybe. So just some of the things that people can do that maybe don't take a large production, don't take a lot of money, don't take a lot of time, just to enjoy that sort of travel. How would they plan for that?
Absolutely. And I talk about it on my podcast a lot, which is having a traveler's mindset.
Hmm.
And so you can apply that to anything in your life. And the way I look at it is, how one is, sort of embrace the unexpected. And I mean, while it may be more obvious, like when you're traveling to an exotic place where it's a new currency, new language, driving on a new side of the road, it's also true like in our backyards. And so you can embrace new experiences in your backyards and not just sort of start looking at the world around you with a new perspective, because that's what traveling, why traveling is so rejuvenating, is when we go somewhere and we can sort of see everything with a fresh set of eyes. And it's there's just something about that, like that helps us get unstuck from the current things that might be boggling us down in our life. And so yeah, you could apply that. You could pick. So I live sort of in like this rural area of Vermont, and some people may complain like there's nothing to do here. Like I live in this little town, and but there are actually tons of places to explore. Like I could. I mean, this is maybe not the best example because not everyone lives on the border. But
Hmm.
now that the border is open with Canada again, I could just drive like 30 minutes across the border. It's a new language, new currency, like new units on the street signs. And but you could do the same thing. I grew up outside of Washington D.C. I would take the metro from the suburban town that I lived in, and I would just go into DC and just look at the museums. And so it's just really like looking like feeling confident that you can find an adventure, you can find a new experience, and then going out and looking for it.
Hmm. And that's something I think that you mentioned that really I think we tend not to look at in visiting local places, going into museums as travel or as a trip somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, so let me ask you this: when you are traveling, what is one of the best things to do to really experience where you are?
Mm. So that's my personal favorite thing is like I mean we all can embrace different travel styles and you know
Mhm.
different stages of our life or even different trips. My personal favorite travel is where I sort of am embraced or where I'm immersed in the culture where like I sort of live as close to how the locals live or at least interact with the locals. Like I'm not a resort kind of gal in general. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to going to one, but you know, that's so like if you had like if it was like my cup of tea of traveling, like I would, you know, just go and chat with locals and like ask them where they eat and go eat there. So I
Mhm.
actually think food, you know, food is this sort of connector in humanity. And like, you know, we all eat and it's so diverse, you know. So I'll talk about like a recent trip I went to Eleuthera, which is an out island of the Bahamas. And so it was like a 2 hour flight from Atlanta. So like seems pretty close, but it's, you know, it's different enough. Currency was they used the US dollar, so it wasn't that different there. They drive on a different side of the road, but it was the food. Like I would go and, you know, they, one of the things was fresh conch. So they would like divers would get conch every day and they would process it like right on the beach. And there was a conch stand where like a father and son and mom, like a sort of like a family team, they made fresh conch salad every day. And so just like chatting with them as they're chopping it and then showing my kids how they make it. And it's just so different. Like we're like, wait, so they did cook it? Oh no, like it's fresh and it's raw, and they just kind of chop it into, have like a mix with fruit and vegetables, and it's so just like, and through food you can, it gives you an opportunity to talk to somebody. Like I may not sit there and chat with him because he's making this conch salad for me for 15 minutes, but you know it gives us an opportunity to sort of connect too. So yeah, it's all about, you know, the food and going, you know, asking the locals and going to where they eat.
Mhm. I agree. And so when you're home and you've been someplace, how have you been able to reproduce some of those feelings by maybe going to a restaurant where they serve the same food?
You know, that is another, I was just thinking that is one other way that you can travel in your backyard. So whether if you've been to another country, that's actually, you can go to like a Thai restaurant. I have not personally been to Thailand, but my mom actually is just there right now. But you could go to the Thai restaurant, and like if you've been to Thailand and you learn some Thai, you could like try to speak Thai with them and say like, you know, say, hey, you know, maybe not the best Thai, but this is what I learned. And then talk about your experiences there. And so that's one way of like finding the people in your backyard that are actually from other parts of the world, and connecting with them. And everybody just appreciates that. Like, and that's another way, when I travel is I try to learn like even one or two words in the local language, even if I don't know anything. Like I just, you know, go on Google Translate, like how do you say hello and thank you, and to just try it. Like even if it feels silly, like it's easier if I speak English because everyone, you know, knows some English in the world for the
Mhm.
most part. But
Yes.
it's so much easier when I kind of put myself on the limb and you know make a fool of myself and try to speak in the language that I don't feel comfortable speaking in.
Mhm.
It just, people appreciate that. And so same thing when I come back here and I go to like, you know, like the Puerto Rican restaurant or, you know, any of the places where I've traveled to, and just connecting with people and locally.
Mhm. Well, one of the tricks I use, and just like you said, when traveling, ask people locally where they eat, but also asking locally where people eat to reproduce what they have at home. And that's another
Mm.
way of getting something authentic. If you can't travel or, have, like I said, limited time, you said enjoying your backyard. That's another way of doing it. And one of the things I just want to mention is that, and you can attest to this, that the way food is prepared, the type of ingredients that are used are very different from the United States. And often, what happens when you use those fresh foods, fresh vegetables, fresh meats, it has a completely different effect on your body.
Yes.
And so what happens, often I hear from people saying, I traveled to such and such a place, I ate whatever I wanted, I ate all day, and I came back and I lost weight.
And I
How
lost weight.
is it? How is that? One is because I'm sure stress levels are low, so that helps with cortisol levels not being high. But the other, I think, is just what's in the food. Would you think that's true? Do you think that possible?
Absolutely. And it's also the culture around the food.
Hmm.
There's a food culture that I think Americans can just learn from and adapt. So just like the time that you spend around food, to prepare food, to shop for food, to prepare food, and then the time that you have around the table to socialize, like and so you're not eating as quickly, and there's like a happiness, like a socialization that happens when you're eating the food. And so like I have memories. I mean, I grew up, I spent the early part of my childhood in China, and I still have memories now, which we didn't really have after we moved to the US, of sort of like being around the dinner table where like the family, the whole extended family's there, like having lively conversation. I don't know what they were saying, but I just remember the food and hearing it as a kid.
Yeah. And so did you find that, well, you mentioned China because, as you know, there's a lot of Chinese food around the country.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
Tell us what's the difference really truly between authentic
Oh,
Chinese food
yeah.
and what we call Chinese food here in the United States?
Yeah, so one sign is if you go to a Chinese restaurant, sort of like in a random place, like look to see how many other Chinese people are actually there. I
Okay.
personally make it a point usually never to go to a Chinese restaurant, like a random Chinese restaurant. And
Mhm.
you can usually tell because I'll look at the menu. I'm like, why does this menu look the same as another Chinese takeout menu? Like, this can't be. Like, is this like a Chinese restaurant in a box? Um, so yes, I'm very picky with my choice of Chinese. They're just totally different. Like it's, I mean, aside from the fact that there's rice and then there's meat and vegetables, like even the types of vegetable is different. The way that the meat is prepared is different, and it's more processed. You know, the sort of the generic Chinese food, like where the takeout menu looks exactly the same as another restaurant. It's like
Mhm.
this is not, I mean, it's food. I mean, if I
Yeah.
was hungry, I would go eat it, but it's just very different and it's very, very different. Like it almost
Mhm.
is like the American. I mean, I guess that's the best way of putting it. It's the Americanized version of Chinese food, but it's really
Yeah.
not Chinese
It's
food.
not Chinese. So if someone wants to travel, they don't want it to be stressful because otherwise, what's the point? What would be some tips that you would give people to uh, travel, one, if necessary, on a budget, but two, just to make it enjoyable, make it easier on everyone involved?
Mm, yeah. Yeah, that's great. I mean, so for let's talk about the budget part because I feel like that sort of gets a lot of people. Um, I first sort of was introduced to this idea when I was a high school student. There was a physics teacher that I had who's like always seemed really happy. Like how when you're like a student or when you're a kid, like you sort of you just kind of gravitate to people who look really happy. So he always seemed really happy. And one day he mentioned something about you know anyone can travel. Like it's really like you can travel on all budgets. And he was like just the high school physics teacher who had the summers off, but not on a very high salary or anything. And it's so true because it depends what your expectations are. I mean, I think most of us who are listening, we probably want somewhere that's safe and clean and like just that's pretty much it. Like you don't want to go somewhere and feel like your life is in danger or like you're worried about a sanitation. But
Mhm.
aside from that, I mean, like there's not you have to decide for yourself. But is there's that much joy when you pay for like an $800 a night hotel versus a $150 a night hotel? And I
Mhm.
think at least for me, I don't need to always be staying at the fancy hotels to really enjoy myself. So I
Mhm.
think that like don't have FOMO, don't compare yourself to others. Just figure out like what's really important to you, because that's
Mhm.
that's sort of the mission of the Dare to Dream physician is to help everyone kind of figure out what's important to them instead of kind of listening to the noise that's around us. So yeah, like figure out what is your why for traveling. Is it connecting with your family? Is it just having like new experiences? And then is it relaxing? I think that's true for all of us. Like we don't really want a trip where we have to then have a vacation from the trip.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and so figure out your why and then just be confident in that. And so personally, as a mom of three kids and, who's working, who has usually a pretty busy life, My more recent trips have been, yeah, like I want to sightsee and all of that, but I really just also wanted like relaxation.
Mhm.
And so, like my recent trip, like I was saying, to Eleuthera in the Bahamas, um, I didn't do that much planning. I mean, I got an inspiration. I heard about this place um, uh, from other women physicians who actually had young kids, who was like, I just came to this place and I rented a pretty simple house that's like right on the beach. And apparently, this island that I was in, it's 110 miles long and it's about
Mhm.
a mile and a half on average wide. There's a lot of beach.
Yeah.
There's
Mhm.
a lot of beach, so it's not that hard to rent a house with the waterfront. So I thought that sounds really nice, and then so I got inspired. I was like, okay, this sounds like a place that I want to go to, and so I just looked for a house because we for our family of five, it's just easier to stay at like Airbnb type of place, like a
Mhm.
vacation
Yeah.
rental. Um, and then I got flights. That was it. And then of course I'm like, well, now I know my dates because I found the house that we wanted to live in, and we got the flights. Then I just need to get a car rental. That was really all the planning that I did. And then the rest, I just watched YouTube videos. I would just YouTube search, what to do in this place that we're going to, this island that we're going to. And I got lots of ideas. And that was it. Like I really did not do more plan. I didn't have time to do more
Mhm.
planning. And also
Okay.
I think it's that traveler's mindset. Like
Mhm.
you are ready for whatever that may go different. Like it could have been that I showed up and maybe the car didn't work out, or the flight got delayed, or the house did not work out. Fortunately for
Mhm.
that trip, that didn't happen, but it's happened to us before. But it's just like being able to sort of improvise on the spot and be okay and have fun and stay relaxed, despite whatever is going our way. And then to look for adventure. Like, so we didn't do too much. Like every day I'm like, well, there's this place we want to check out. So we did that. And then the next thing sort of just comes up because you chat with people on the way. And then you just like, and then it helps you figure out what the next site that you want to see, or what do you want to spend the next day doing.
So let me ask you this. So who do you work with and what should they expect if they were to come to work with you?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, um, I am currently at the point where I'm mostly working on providing content, and providing content like on social media. I have a Facebook community, so for physicians who want to sort of prioritize travel and live life to the fullest through traveling, they can join the Dare to Dream Physician, say Dare to Dream Physician Travel
Okay.
Facebook community, and on Instagram, and then putting out my podcast. So I'm really looking to just serve
Okay.
physicians and really anybody that wants to live life to the fullest through travel, and sort of put the best content out for them. And so, like, I would love it if people join my Instagram, which is at Dream Physician on Instagram, and like I said, the Facebook group. And if they have any comments or questions, like anything that they want me to sort of answer about travel, I would love to support them.
Mhm.
And of course, there's the Dare to Dream Physician Travel Podcast, which I put out a weekly episode every Monday.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that you've really covered quite a bit in such a short amount of time. I didn't expect it to go this fast. But um thank you so much for coming on, and I will make sure that all of your information and contact information is in the comments and everything that I post. But Dare to Dream Physician podcast, anyone can listen, and following you on Instagram and Facebook, anyone can follow and ask questions, and then but primarily who you'd like to work to, people living the best version of their best life, as they say, living their best life. Use a physician group, but that doesn't mean you can't gather the information from somewhere else. So, but thank you so much for coming on. Thank you.
Thank you
Is
so
there
much, Dr. Toomer.
anything else you just like to add? Just like, this is my passion. I just want to talk about it.
I would just say, for people who are listening,
Hmm.
that just and Dr. Toomer, your story is so powerful, and I'm sure, like, you tell this all the time, which is life is precious.
Hmm.
Tomorrow's not guaranteed, And
Yeah.
so don't wait. Like if you have something that you really want to do with your life that's important to you, whether that's telling someone that you love them, like hugging your kids, hugging your family members, or like going on that dream trip, like don't
Hmm.
wait, because we don't know. Like we, even if you're alive in a year, you don't know, you might not be able to go do it for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
so just embrace your dreams and live that dream as soon as possible. Don't wait. You, the best case scenario, you'll have many dreams come true. The worst case scenario, at least you got that dream that's the most important to you, that you decided to carry out.
And memories you keep.
Yeah.
Can't lose them. They don't go away. So, well, thank you so much for joining me. And you heard it here. Don't wait. Travel. Good night.
Right. Thank you.